What if the monster was never caught and is still living among us? I was only 6 years old that night. It was a normal day. We had spent the afternoon at a friend's house in a small village on the outskirts of Florence. We were driving home. My father was behind the wheel. My mother stared out the window, and I was asleep in the back seat. I remember the steady hum of the engine and my mother's voice humming a song. The road was empty, only the car's headlights cutting through the darkness. Then I heard something. A sharp thud, like a stone hitting the car. The vehicle shook slightly, and I woke up. At first, I thought my father had braked, but everything was still. I called for my mom. No answer. I called for my dad. Nothing. I sat up and touched their shoulders, trying to wake them. I called again and again, louder each time, but they didn't move. The dashboard lights flickered, and the air smelled strange, like metal and smoke. My chest ached with fear. I opened the door and stepped out to look for help. It was cold outside, and the wind moved the trees. In the distance, I saw a small house with a light on. I walked toward it, trembling, without looking back. When I reached the door, I knocked with all my strength. A woman opened it, and I barely managed to say 3 words. My parents won't wake up. Nobody knew it then, but that was the first night of the killer Italy would come to know as the Monster of Florence. My city changed after that night. What once was a quiet place became a land of fear. Couples stopped meeting in the countryside. The hills grew empty. From time to time, new victims appeared. Always couples, always inside their cars. The killer acted the same way every time, attacking in the dark, using the same weapon, a Beretta 22 pistol. He never stole anything. He never left traces. He is officially linked to 8 attacks between 1968 and 1985, leaving 14 people dead, 7 couples. For 17 years, he haunted Tuscany, turning it into one of the longest and most disturbing criminal cases in Italian history. To this day, it remains one of Europe's greatest unsolved mysteries. In the newspapers, they called him Il Mostro di Firenze, the Monster of Florence. The police couldn't figure out who he was. They lost evidence, accused the wrong people, and for years, the killer walked free. I grew up hearing names, theories, and lies. Over time, I learned who the men were that Italy once believed guilty. The first was Pietro Pacciani, a bad-tempered farmer who lived on the outskirts of town. He was arrested, tried, even convicted, until the verdict was overturned. The evidence didn't fit, and many said he was only a scapegoat. Then came Mario Vanni and Giancarlo Lotti, 2 of his friends. They claimed to have helped him, though their stories kept changing. Still, they were sent to prison, even though the murders had ended years earlier. Before them, there was another lead, the Sardinian Trail. Several men from the island of Sardinia who lived near Florence were investigated. One of them, Francesco Vinci, was arrested multiple times. He died without conviction. Decades later, his body was exhumed to search for DNA. Nothing was found, and then another name surfaced, Giuseppe Joe Bevilacqua, a former U.S. soldier who worked at the American Military Cemetery in Florence. Some journalists claimed he confessed privately. Others even linked him to a famous American killer, the Zodiac, but nothing was ever proven. Not a single solid piece of evidence tied him to the case. As the years passed, the investigation became a labyrinth. Confused witnesses, media-driven trials, false leads. The monster was never identified. The police built a profile, an Italian man, around 30 to 40 years old, reserved, methodical, with knowledge of weapons or military training. He lived alone or with elderly relatives, led an ordinary life, yet hid deep repression and resentment toward young couples. He was organized, calculating, planning every attack, leaving no trace. His motivation wasn't immediate pleasure. It was control, power, and a sense of absolute dominance. Experts said he didn't kill on impulse. He killed to balance his own darkness. Over time, investigators discovered that these were not simple murders. There was something more, something logic and science couldn't explain. The killer didn't just take lives. He seemed to want to erase the very idea of love. He chose young couples, watching them from the darkness in their most intimate moments, when the world shrinks to 2 breaths and one shared silence. He waited, still, patient, until desire itself became his signal. Then he acted, with a calm that froze the blood. Some women were found with parts of their clothing displaced or removed, and with additional injuries inflicted after death. Forensic experts documented localized wounds that didn't match the gunfire, but rather deliberate post-mortem manipulation. This led investigators to describe the acts as symbolic or ritualistic, not, according to autopsy reports, as sexual assault in the physical sense. In short, there was post-mortem tampering directed at certain parts of the body, and in some cases, clothing had been altered. Reports mentioned marks, or incisions, made after death, without detailing them graphically. The scenes he left behind were not only evidence, they were messages, warnings. Every detail seemed designed to disturb, to make anyone who saw them understand one thing. The killer couldn't stand closeness, tenderness, or human touch. What he couldn't have, he destroyed. The murder weapon, the Beretta 22, was never found. In 2022 and 2023, Italian authorities reopened the case with new DNA testing, but none of the results were conclusive. The victims' families still demand justice. Officially, the Monster of Florence case remains open. If that man is still alive, he would now be between 70 and 80 years old. Perhaps an old man, sick, watching the news in silence while the world still whispers his name. People often ask me if I believe it was one man, or several. The truth is, no one knows. Some say it was the same killer who terrorized California, the Zodiac. They claim the timelines match, that his murders there stopped just as ours began here. It's only a theory, but enough to keep many from sleeping at night. In 2024 and 2025, a new clue reignited hope. Technicians discovered unidentified DNA on bullets from the last crime scene of 1985, but so far, that trace hasn't led to a conviction. Today, while the world still waits for answers, the Monster of Florence remains a name without a face. It's been more than 50 years since that night. I still live in Florence. I still dream of that road, of the car lights, of the silence, because the monster was never caught, and I survived to tell.
Subscribe now, dale like, hit the like button. Más historias te están esperando. More stories are waiting in the shadows. No te vayas, stay with me. Sobreviví para contarlo y tú también. I survived to tell.